It's the weekend. I hope you're having a good weekend. Saturday, May the 3rd, the word for you today, our devotional. Today it talks about knowing when not to speak. Man, there's some wisdom there, knowing when not to speak. Proverbs chapter 12, verse 23 says, "A prudent man keeps his knowledge to himself, but the heart of fools blurts out folly." A prudent man, a wise man. I love the way our devotional starts off today. It says, someone else's need to know shouldn't determine your need to speak. Sometimes people want an answer for you, and you may not have an answer, and they just keep pushing you, and so you just say something. And then later on it's wrong, and what do? They criticize you for saying something wrong. Well, if you hadn't have pushed me, just because somebody has an urgent need to know something doesn't mean we have to say anything. If we don't have the right answer, don't answer. And the book of Proverbs, sometimes go through the book of Proverbs with a highlighter and just highlight every verse that has to do with our tongue or speech, and just see how many times Proverbs talks about what we have to say. So if we want to be a prudent person, a wise person when it comes to speech rather than a fool, how can this verse help us? Well, first of all, it says, a wise man keeps his knowledge to himself. When? Even though he knows more about a subject than what's being talked about. Somebody else, you're around a group of people and these people are talking and they just talking like they know everything, and you're thinking they don't have a clue what they're talking. You could just speak up and make them look like complete fools. But instead, you just remain silent, maybe even ask some questions, draw out some more things that they know or don't know. Now, a wise person doesn't just jump in and correct everybody. A fool, he talks even when he doesn't know what he's talking about. You ever been in a group of people and they are just telling you all about it, and you happen to know about it, and you know what they're saying is totally wrong? You're thinking, you're an idiot. You're an absolute idiot. Now, the prudent person doesn't say that. He may think it, but he doesn't say it. But he keeps his knowledge to himself, not to keep people from understanding, but just because he knows that they're wanting to talk. A wise man also doesn't share information about someone that would cause them shame. There are times when you know about somebody has done something wrong, and you know about it, and a group of people are talking about this person, and you could be the first person to bring up this bit of information. The wise person says, no, I'm not going to bring it up. Somebody else may say it, somebody may not say it, but a wise person doesn't say it. The fool can't wait to tell others what they've done. So which are you? Are you that wise person, or are you the fool that adds to the gossip? Wise person recognizes the shortcomings of others, but doesn't point them out. Even though he can see where and when a person fails, he doesn't bring it out to cause them shame. He recognizes it, but he doesn't really say anything. The fool can't wait to let everybody know, I caught that. I see where you did something wrong. I remember when I was just started as a youth minister. I had just started in the ministry. I knew very little really about the Bible. And I was leading a Bible study on a Wednesday night. And the date, and I can't remember if it was AD or BC, but I said BC was before Christ and AD was after the death. And there was a guy that raised his hand quick, and he says, no, that's not what it means. It means this. You ought to get that straight. Man, I've never forgotten it. AD really means the year of our Lord. It Latin has nothing, doesn't say after the death. But I'd always heard that, and so that's what I said, and I didn't know what I was talking about. Now, I learned something from what he said, but it would have been so much better if after it was over, if he would have come up and said, hey, just something you said, I just want to, when you said AD means after the death, it doesn't mean that. Check it out. It means this. I remember a baseball game. Umpire made a call, and it was a wrong call. So I went out to argue. It was my son's team, and I explained where he was in error, and he said, no, 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 no. And I said, okay, we'll just call it that rest of the way in the game. Okay, but check on it after the game. Well, I didn't expect him to, but the game was over. We lost, and so I was walking to the car, and he comes running up to me, and he says, hey, I checked that out, and you were right. Thanks. I didn't embarrass him. I didn't yell. I didn't holler. I just was questioning him on it, and I wasn't going to make a big deal about it. And when we know somebody's wrong, get them off the side and help them to know. You don't need to let them go on their error, but don't have to make a big deal in front of a bunch of people either. And then a wise man doesn't get into an argument with somebody who wants to start a fight. There are times when people they're not interested in learning anything. They just want to argue, and they want to find fault, and they want to fight. Well, if you don't give them any fuel, it's hard. It's just going to fizzle out because they don't have anybody to fight with. The fool looks for anything, true or false, to discredit someone else. Sometimes a person wants to just criticize and cut down someone. And so let me ask you, how are we doing? Are you more like the prudent person, or are you more like the fool? When you know something on somebody, are you quick to point it out, or you just keep it to yourself? When you see somebody you hear somebody say something wrong, do you go to them privately and tell them, or do you make them look like a fool in front of everybody else? Are you the prudent person or the wise person? It's kind of like there was a man sees a sign in front of a house. It says, talking dog for sale. He thought, this is intriguing. So he goes to the house, and they say, the dog's around back. So he walks around the back and says, do you talk? There's a dog standing there, says, do you talk? Dog goes, yep. He says, well, what's your story? Dog says, well, this is the dog talking. He says, well, I discovered my gift talking when I was pretty young, and I wanted to help the government, so the CIA took me all over the world. And they had me sitting in on meetings and sitting in places where none of them could be, because nobody figured a dog would be eavesdropping. And I was able to give them all kinds of information, and I got all kinds of medals and awards. But I got tired of traveling, so I signed up for a job at the airport. And I'd look around and see somebody who looked suspicious, and I would go over and kind of lay down next to them, and then I could tell the people, okay, watch out for this person or that person, and that was pretty good. So I got married. I had a litter of pups, and now I'm just retired. The guy's absolutely amazed. So he goes back in and asks the owner of the dog, how much do you want for him? And he says, $10. $10? Are you kidding? Why such little? Why just $10 for an amazing thing like a talking dog? And the owner says, the problem is he's a big fat liar. He didn't do any of that stuff. You can't believe a single word he says. Well, you can be pretty amazing. You can have great knowledge, but if people don't have a respect for you, they're not going to pay any attention to what you say, even if you're a talking dog. How are you doing about knowing when to speak and when not to speak? Because it's really tempting. It's really tempting. Somebody says something wrong, to correct them. It's really tempting to be able to be the first person to you've got some knowledge about something that nobody else has and want to say it. It can be really tempting to do that, but it causes harm to people. It takes a wise person to remain silent, to know when to speak and when to remain silent. Hope you have a good weekend, and hope to see you Sunday.